Hello, greetings, engineers. I've come up with a solution to a problem presented in the Automatons video. It featured a drone departing the backside of a mining rover that would then return to a base and deposit its ore load. However, such a miner would only be able to retrieve minerals from surface deposits, and that's not really feasible. So, in order to be a little more practical with it, you'd have to have a setup similar to this, where you would have a mining rover capable of digging underground and retrieving ores, which are going to be underground, and is also able to have a trailer that it could bring by. This trailer would be parked outside of your mining deposit, and that trailer is going to carry the cargo drone back and forth. And by doing so, you eliminate any kind of logistics with having to drag a trailer through a tight tunnel, which would be an absolute nightmare, and the further nightmare of having your drone try to navigate the tight tunnel too. That's just problem upon problem upon problem that we really don't need to a solution to a problem that's really not a problem, because once you can start flying, I tend to just do plunge miners or whatever other kind of miner to get what I need, and mining rovers aren't the most effective at that point. But nonetheless, I have come up with a multi-part solution with the Automatons blocks. So the first thing that would happen is we have an event controller. This event controller here will determine what percentage of the cargo is filled, and once it gets to 90% or greater, it will perform an action. And this is monitoring the large cargo container from the cargo drone. And let's go over to select the actions. It will activate the go to base timer block 1 trigger now. And we can go over to the timer block. And I have the go to base timer block 1 here. This is going to be set up so that it will leave from this carrier and do the initial portion of its takeoff on the carrier side. So let's take a look at these actions. I've got the flight ready sequence, which we'll cover here shortly. And then I have my AI for the carrier side to be turned on, both the AI and the behavior. And then I have the reverse order for the path, and it will reverse whatever order it was, and then it will reverse to take off. By manually flying it into a position, you have to probably do a manual reverse order in order for this reverse order to work. And then I set a timer to go to the next timer for the go to base part 2. Let's take a look at this flight ready first, since that is a timer on here. We go to the flight ready timer block. We'll check out its actions. And we've got the thrusters being turned on. If I had set this up for the battery to be set to recharge at some point, it'll be set to auto now. And I will unlock the drone from the carrier. And that way it won't flip out as it tries to hang on to the subgrid there. I've also got the lights to turn on for it, and I also want the flight controller to turn on and its behavior to turn on, just in case I had turned that off somewhere else in the field. The second part of that timer was the go to base part 2, and where in the go to base part 1 we were doing a reverse order from our carrier. This one will turn off our carrier side AI and turn on the base side AI task, and also reverse its order. And that will get us over towards the base. And in the flight path for the base, if we go and check out the AI path that we were turning on, going to the base side, this is where I mentioned before the waypoint here for the event controller to detect if the connector on the drone is ready to switch lock. I need this to be turned back on so that when I do hover over the connector, it will switch lock. Let's take a look at that. So event controller, detect, or the connector. When it is ready to lock for my mining drone connector, it will perform an action, and that action will be to turn the flight off. And we'll go check that timer out. Flight off timer block should be mostly what we have for the flight ready. So let's set up these actions and see what it is. We've got our connector there to switch lock because we are already in the ready to lock position. And I also have the Atmo thrusters to be turned off. I could also have this activate another event controller to check to see if the charge is at the appropriate level and recharge the batteries if necessary, but I did not include that in this build. And then I also want to be able to turn this event controller off, because as soon as the drone disconnects, it is technically in the ready to lock position again, which will reinitiate this sequence. And I do not want it flying in the air when this sequence is initiated, because it will turn off the thrusters and fall out of the sky. I can also turn off the lights as it's docked, and I do not need them. And I can turn off the AI flight just in case it wants to try to take off and do something else. That way it cannot actually do so. Going back the other way, we should be able to check another event. When my cargo container is empty, we have at a threshold near 0, not at 0, and that's just because it didn't really like being at 0. Just as being filled, it does not like being at 100%, so you can adjust those as necessary. And I am again monitoring my large cargo container on the drone, and let's see what the actions are here. I have the go to the carrier timer block activated because it thinks that it's at the base, and it should be at the base. So we can go back to the timer blocks and see what go to carrier timer block does. Both of these are going to be just the reverse of the go to the base ones. So as we go to set up the actions, we'll see that we have the flight ready again, which will turn off, or will turn on all of the systems on the drone. We'll turn on our base side AI tasks so that it can reverse the order on the base side and take off. And then it activates a timer for the go to carrier part 2. And in go to carrier part 2, this timer triggers in 10 seconds, so it has enough time to get away to its base. And we'll set up these actions where we've got the base side AI being turned off, so it does not try to do anything over there. And then we'll turn on our go to the carrier side AI and then reverse the order, so it should fly and dock in here now. And then again, once it gets close, we'll go to the AI on the carrier side. And we can see that waypoint 0 has the same behavior as we did on the base side AI, where once it detects that the connector is ready to be switch lock, it will do so and make that connection. And then that would put the drone back here at the carrier, ready to receive another load of ore. So let's start with our cargo over here. I will open up these cargo containers. I have cargo container 1 and 2 for the rover, and I will just fill them up real fast with some ore I have. We can see the event controllers on the mining rover already starting to take over, and they are flashing appropriately. The material is being pulled through to the sorter and is filling this cargo drone, and away it goes. That trailer is very light, and we are very heavy in the rover with all of our ore. Yeah, it's now time for the coup de grace is, will the drone be able to find its way back to the carrier from the base? And it looks like it did successfully. And there it's docked and turned off. So that's a good successful run to see that the cargo system actually works. This was an extremely annoying endeavor, but I hope it teaches everyone a lesson or two about how to use these logical blocks and how the Automatons trailer is deceptively simple, and of course we had to engineer a more complicated problem to solve for ourselves. Unfortunately, I'm not able to capture all of the distances that it's traveling. It does seem to be fickle with that, but I have taken off successfully and am beginning to fly to the base. And once I get towards the base, there should be another AI block that takes over and lands me appropriately next to this reference beacon. However, it does not seem to have captured the approach vector appropriately and is now stalling out. So it is a perfect example of how this can easily fail. There was supposed to be an approach from the rear of this base, and then it would land on that little station there. However, it looks like it tried to reach the path in reverse now. See if it will make a second attempt. It looks like it might. No, it has given up. It is slowly drifting backwards. So here we can actually just go inside, and we will go to the base side task recorder, and we can see here that this is in reverse. On the inbound portion, I have an event set to happen at that waypoint, and that is to turn on the proximity for the ready connect on the connector, and that will actually do a shutdown sequence to it. But this is not in the current order. We need to reverse this order. Now we should be able to approach from waypoint 0, which is the first one it'll do. These numbers will change, but their location will always be the same. I say always in quotations there also, because that's not always going to be the same. I have found that a number of times the points that it tries to go to get shifted randomly, and then you have to rebuild the AI task settings. And if it doesn't like what's around it, then it will also not comply with what you want. But here, as we approach that waypoint 2, the event timer for that connector proximity activated, and that allowed it to turn off the lights and thrusters as it landed. And upon landing and connecting, the base's sorter will pull all of the ore out of the drone. Go into the drone's cargo, and we can see that it is emptied. And upon emptying, it had detected that it was empty and began a takeoff sequence by launching forward on the base side AI that we had before. And now it would have swapped over to the carrier side. I have these set on a timer to go back and forth. After launch, a timer will activate in 10 seconds to allow the other flight AI to take over. I was not successful in getting them to do the swap with the AI in control by way of waypoint activations, because the drone would frequently miss the waypoint it was supposed to go to and then never act the sequence or inactivate it out of sequence. So it was rather frustrating to get this to work somewhat. So the drone should approach from the rear, which is where its first setup is supposed to be, and then it should stop overhead that connector and descend on it. I initially had a longer sequence of waypoints for it, However, the drone did not seem to care to follow all of those in the correct path consistently, even with precision mode enabled, which was most infuriating. So I decreased the number of waypoints to make it a little easier. Even this little landing pad here seemed to be problematic, as the drone likes to shift around. We can see that the first couple of docking attempts, we were spot on, and now it has shifted off to the side. While this little bit of variance is still acceptable for this connector to set, I have had it stop meters above or to the side of it. So even though its precision mode is supposed to be centered, it is not. Another thing to note for these AI blocks is that it has an imaginary area around it that it wants to keep clear. So that dock was originally much smaller, and it had to be expanded so that the drone could happily land there. And by expanded, I mean none of the blocks had to be occupied above it. So all of those grids are actually facing below. We can see that if I wanted to, I could place this cube in any of these positions because every one of these is upside down. And that's what I meant by the drone wanting a large area around the space it needs to fly in order to fly appropriately. And this was demonstrated in Keen's video as well, where the AI wants a wide berth in order to travel around. First, over on the mining rover, I've got it set up with 2 large cargo containers for the small grade craft, and each of these are set up with event controllers to detect a capacity at which the lights will start to flicker on them. At about 60%, the yellow lights will turn on, and at 90%, the red lights will turn on. They'll also be flashing, so they're a little more eye-catching while you're in the tunnel. This rover also features 2 rotors, which will be able to actuate independent of each other, and that will allow the 2 sets of drills I have to be able to change elevation and keep the rover level while I'm digging underground. This is of great benefit as it's very easy to become lopsided or even flip a rover underground. Of course, it has gyros to be able to help prevent that, and hydrogen engines and hydrogen tanks should I need them, and a large battery just because that's what you're going to need for power. Plenty of lights all around, and then it has a remote control and camera, which I always like to use on my rovers so that I can back out either entirely from the drill hole or get to a switchback underground so that I can then drive forward. This rover also features a little hitch system so it can actually tow the drone carrier. This drone carrier has a conversion here to pull over to the larger small grid sorter so that it can more quickly drain the cargo containers from the mining rover to the cargo drone. I initially had a small sorter in here, but it took far too long in order to pull the materials through. Even with this sorter in place, I can still dump materials either directly into this drone or push them manually from the cargo container into the cargo drone, which we will do here soon. The cargo drone carrier also has a remote control and a camera so that I can drive it forward and redock with the mining rover. One of the more important features on this carrier is a beacon, which the drone will use to locate the carrier in order to return to it. Using the AI blocks, the beacon as the reference point, I can drive this carrier and drone wherever I need to, and the drone will always be able to find its way back to the carrier. I say always with the quotations there because the AI blocks are fickle and will frequently mess up. The drone has all of the logic components for what we need here. We've got the AI task block and the AI flight control in here. I've got a task block to bring it to the carrier and another to bring it to the base over there in the distance. It has a number of timers around here and a number of event controllers to activate various sequences. In its current state, it is landed and it has a setting to look for the percentage filled of the cargo container. Once it has met that match, a timer will activate and lights the engines, and the appropriate controls will turn on for it to begin an ascent and travel towards the base, at which time it will dock and then discharge its cargo through there. Then it will return back to the carrier and redock and continue to pull more ore. Let's do a quick tour around this base. This base is capable of being driven up and docking here, and that's precisely what these connectors are for. Around this way, there are just some little viewports to fire out from if need be. An area where you can potentially remove the grates and do maintenance on the vehicle should you need it. Mostly there for decoration. A couple of refineries with the access ports here, where you can withdraw and access these directly, in addition to the control panels everywhere. Some miscellaneous supplies and boxes around for storage and operation of the facility. A contracts and store here if you needed to set something up, if this were an in-game outpost somewhere. We can take the stairs up around here. This area is mostly secure. You can walk off to do maintenance over here or continue walking up and around to where the drone would be. We can hop back down. Some outdoor seating and the indoor area. I've got it all sandy in here as well because the ground isn't level, so by making this flat and into the ground, there's some dirt in here, and I'm like, that's pretty appropriate because this outside area isn't necessarily secure, so you could absolutely have some dirt blow in. And I thought that would be pretty cool. They've got a med bay here, some facilities, bathroom, shower, kitchen, TV, bedroom. And back this way, some of the industrial machinery, some tanks and some piping, some more supplies around here, more control panels to access, and then the other side to do maintenance on the assembler if need be. So just put this together. I thought it looked pretty nice. The whole thing will go up on the workshop if anyone is interested in it. And we can see here comes our cargo drone flying back after receiving another portion of the ore from the carrier. And it should be able to make its landing here. That's nice when it finally works the way it's supposed to. Until next time, go forth and build great things. See you then.